The morning light filtered weakly through the dusty curtains of a small, modest apartment, casting faint golden lines across the cluttered living room. Amelia sat curled up on the couch, her knees tucked against her chest, staring blankly at the coffee table in front of her. The cup of tea she had made an hour ago had gone cold, the steam long faded, and the untouched biscuit lay forgotten on the saucer. Her eyes were puffy, the whites tinged with red from the night she had spent sobbing into her pillow. She had told herself 100 times that she was fine, that everything was okay, but the silence of the room was deafening, and the echoes of last night's harsh words refused to leave her mind. A knock on the door jolted her out of her trance. She quickly wiped her cheeks with her sleeve, hoping to hide any trace of tears, and forced herself to stand. It was the plumber she had called 2 days ago about the leaking sink. She had almost forgotten he was coming. When she opened the door, she was greeted by a tall man in his mid-30s, wearing a navy blue uniform and holding a worn tool bag. His brown hair was slightly messy, and there was a faint streak of grease on his cheek. He had a friendly yet observant gaze, the kind that seemed to look right through you. "Morning, ma'am," he said warmly. "I'm Daniel, here for the sink." She nodded quickly and stepped aside to let him in. Her voice felt caught in her throat, but she managed a quiet thank you. He glanced at her briefly before heading to the kitchen, but there was something in that glance, like he had already noticed the heaviness in her eyes. As he worked, the sounds of clinking tools and running water filled the silence, a welcome distraction from her thoughts. She busied herself with straightening cushions and wiping the counter, anything to avoid eye contact. But when she walked into the kitchen to check on his progress, she found him standing there, not working, just looking at her with a gentle frown. "You said on the phone everything else was fine," he said softly, "but then why are your eyes swollen from crying?" The question hit her like a soft hammer, unexpected but piercing. She froze, unsure of what to say. Her instinct was to laugh it off, to claim it was allergies, or that she had been up late watching a sad movie. But the kindness in his tone disarmed her, making her feel both exposed and oddly safe. "I'm fine," she whispered, turning away, but the crack in her voice betrayed her. Daniel didn't press, just went back to tightening the pipes, though his expression was thoughtful. Minutes passed before she found herself speaking again, her words spilling without permission. She told him about the argument with her boyfriend, how he had left last night without a word, how the apartment felt colder now. She spoke in fragments, not giving too much away, but enough for him to understand she was hurting. He listened quietly, occasionally nodding, never interrupting. When he was done with the sink, he didn't immediately pack up. Instead, he reached into his bag and pulled out a small, unused towel. "Here," he said, "for your eyes. And maybe make yourself some breakfast. Tea doesn't count." She smiled faintly for the first time that morning. When he left, the apartment felt different, not warmer exactly, but less suffocating. She didn't know why a stranger's concern mattered so much, but it did. That night, she found herself thinking about his words, about how someone who barely knew her could see right through the mask she had been wearing for so long. She didn't realize it yet, but that simple question had been the first thread unraveling a much larger story, one that would change both their lives. Chapter 2. The next morning, Amelia was woken by another knock at her door. Confused, she opened it to find Daniel again, this time holding a small bag of groceries. "I was in the area," he said casually, though she doubted it was the full truth. "Thought I'd check if the leak's holding up, and maybe drop these off." She hesitated, then stepped aside, letting him in. As he set the bag on the counter, she noticed the contents: fresh bread, eggs, some fruit, and a carton of milk. It wasn't much, but it was thoughtful. They made breakfast together in the small kitchen, moving around each other with surprising ease. She hadn't realized how much she missed the sound of another person's voice in the morning, the comfort of shared space. Over the next week, Daniel stopped by a few more times, always with some reason: the sink, the pipes in the bathroom, a package she might have received by mistake. But it became obvious that the repairs were just an excuse. They began talking more, about small things at first: weather, favorite foods, little anecdotes from his work. But gradually, deeper truths came out. He told her about losing his younger sister years ago, about the guilt that never quite left him. She told him about the controlling relationship she had been trapped in for months, the way her boyfriend chipped away at her confidence until she barely recognized herself. One evening, as rain pattered softly against the window, Amelia admitted something she had never said aloud. I don't even know who I am without someone telling me what I should be. Daniel looked at her steadily. Maybe it's time you find out. On your own terms. The words sank deep, igniting a small flame in her chest. Over the following days, she began making small changes, opening the curtains in the morning, cooking for herself, even stepping outside for walks. Each time, Daniel noticed, and each time, he smiled like he was silently cheering her on. But her past wasn't done with her yet. One night, her ex showed up at her door, furious, demanding she let him in. His voice was harsh, his words cutting. Before she could respond, Daniel appeared from the hallway. He had been dropping off a toolbox he borrowed and stepped between them. She said no, Daniel said firmly, his tone low and steady. The tension was electric, but her ex eventually left, muttering threats under his breath. Amelia's hands were shaking, but Daniel's presence was grounding. That night, they sat together in silence, the unspoken bond between them stronger than anything they had planned for. In the weeks that followed, Amelia's confidence slowly returned. She enrolled in a short course, started sketching again, and even really laughed, for the first time in months. Daniel remained a quiet constant, never pushing, never demanding, just there. One evening, as they stood in the kitchen washing dishes, she caught his gaze and felt a warmth she hadn't expected. It wasn't just gratitude anymore, it was something deeper. She didn't know where it would lead, but for the first time, she wanted to find out. Sometimes healing doesn't come in grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the quiet kindness of someone who notices when your eyes are swollen from crying, and cares enough to ask why. And sometimes, that question changes everything.